boys and girls, it's Mrs. Pecora back again to keep reading in our book, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. So let's review real quick what we've read so far. So far we've learned that Peter, our main character, he won a turtle at his friend Jimmy Fargo's birthday party. And also, Peter's biggest problem is not his mother, it's not his father, it's his little brother, Fudge. And we also read, we started chapter 2, that Mr. Hatcher, Peter's dad, has the president of the Juicio company coming to stay with them in their apartment in New York City. I don't know about you boys and girls, but with Fudge around, that might not be such a good idea. So let's read on to see what happens. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. We left off on page 10. The mother was preparing for dinner, so here we go. I went to Jimmy Fargo's for the afternoon. I came home at 4 o'clock. I found my mom standing over the dinner table mumbling. Fudge was on the floor playing with my father's socks. I'm not sure why he likes socks so much, but if you give him a few pairs, he'll play quietly for an hour. I said, "Hi, Mom, I'm home." "I'm missing 2 flowers," my mom said. I don't know how she noticed the 2 flowers were missing from her silver bowl, because there were at least a dozen of them left. But sure enough, when I checked, I saw 2 stems with nothing on them. "Don't look at me, Mom," I said. "What would I do with 2 measly flowers?" So we both looked at Fudge. "Did you take Mommy's pretty flowers?" my mom asked him. "No, take," Fudge said. He was chewing on something. "What's in your mouth?" my mom asked. Fudge didn't answer. "Show Mommy." "No show," Fudge said. "Oh, yes." My mom picked him up and forced his mouth open. She fished out a rose petal. "What did you do with Mommy's flowers?" She raised her voice. She was really getting upset. Fudge laughed. "Tell Mommy." "Yum," Fudge said. "Yummy, yummy, yummy." "Oh, no," my mother cried, rushing to the telephone. She called Dr. Cone. She told him that Fudge ate 2 flowers. Dr. Cone must have asked what kind, because my mom said roses, I think, but I can't be sure. One might have been a daisy. There was a long pause while my mom listened to whatever Dr. Cone had to say. Then Mom said, "Thank you, Dr. Cone." She hung up. "No more flowers," she told Fudge. "You understand?" "No more," Fudge repeated. "No more, no more, no more." My mom gave him a spoonful of peppermint-flavored medicine, the kind I take when I have stomach pains. Then she carried Fudge off to have his bath. "Leave it to my brother to eat flowers." I wonder how they tasted. Maybe they're delicious, and I don't know it because I've never tasted one, I thought. I decided to find out. I picked off 1 petal from a pink rose. I put it in my mouth and tried to chew it up. But I couldn't do it. It tasted awful. I spit it out in the garbage. Well, at least now I knew I wasn't missing anything great. Fudge ate his supper in the kitchen before our company arrived. When he was eating, I heard my mom remind him, "We're going to be a good boy tonight, very good for Daddy's friends." "Good," Fudge said. "Good boy." "That's right," my mother told him. I changed and scrubbed up while Fudge finished his supper. I was going to eat with the company. Being 9 has its advantages. My mom was all dressed up by the time my dad got home with the Yarbys. You'd never have guessed that Mom spent most of the day in the kitchen. You'd also never have guessed that Fudge ate 2 flowers. He was feeling fine. He even smelled nice, like baby powder. Mrs. Yarby picked him up right away. I knew she would. She looked like a grandmother, that type that always makes a big deal out of Fudge. She walked into the living room cuddling him. Then she sat down on the sofa and bounced Fudge around on her lap. "Isn't he the cutest little boy?" Mrs. Yarby said. "I just love babies." She gave him a big kiss on top of his head. I kept waiting for somebody to tell her Fudge was no baby, but no one did. My father carried the Yarby suitcase into Fudge's room. When he came back, he introduced me to our company. "This is our older son, Peter," he said to the Yarbys. "I'm 9 and in 4th grade," I told them. "How do, Peter?" Mr. Yarby said. Mrs. Yarby just gave me a nod. She was still busy with Fudge. I have a surprise for this dear little boy, she said. It's in my suitcase. Should I go get it? Yes, Fudge shouted. Go get, go get. Mrs. Yarby laughed as if that was the best joke she had ever heard. I'll be right back, she told Fudge. She put him down and ran off to find her suitcase. She came back carrying a present tied up with a red ribbon. Ooh, Fudge cried, opening his eyes wide. Goody! He clapped his hands. Mrs. Yarby helped him unwrap his surprise. It was a wind-up train that made a lot of noise. Every time it bumped into something, it turned around and went the other way. Fudge liked it a lot. He likes anything that's noisy. I said, that's a nice train. Mrs. Yarby turned to me. Oh, I have something for you too. Peter, I reminded her. My name is Peter. Yes, well, I'll go get it. Mrs. Yarby left the room again. This time she came back with a flat package. It was wrapped up too, red ribbon and all. She handed it to me. Fudge stopped playing with his train long enough to come over and see what I got. I took off the paper very carefully in case my mother wanted to save it. And also to show Mrs. Yarby that I'm a lot more careful about things than my brother. I'm not sure she noticed. My present turned out to be a big picture dictionary. The kind I like when I was about 4 years old. My old one was in Fudge's bookcase now. I don't know much about big boys, Mrs. Yarby said, so the lady in the store said a nice book would be a good idea. A nice book would have been a good idea, I thought, but a picture dictionary? That's for babies. I've had my own regular dictionary since I was 8. But I knew I had to be polite, so I said, thank you very much. It's just what I've always wanted. Oh, I'm so glad, Mrs. Yarby said. She let out a long sigh and went back on the sofa. My dad offered the Yarbys a drink. Good idea, Mr. Yarby said. What'll it be? My father asked. What'll it be? Mr. Yarby repeated, laughing. What do you think, Hatcher? It'll be Juicio. That's all we ever drink. Good for your health. Mr. Yarby pounded on his chest. Of course, my dad said, like he knew it all along. Juicio for everyone, my dad told my mom. She went in the kitchen to get it. While my father and Mr. Yarby were discussing Juicio, Fudge disappeared. Just as my mother served everyone a glass of Mr. Yarby's favorite drink, he came back. He was carrying a book, my old, worn-out picture dictionary. The same one the Yarbys just gave me. See? Fudge said, climbing on Mrs. Yarby's lap. See, book? I wanted to vanish. I think my mom and dad did too. See, book? Now Fudge held it up over his head. I can use another one, I exclaimed. I really can. The old one's falling apart. I tried to laugh. It's returnable, said Mrs. Yarby. It's silly to keep one if you already have one. She sounded insulted, like it was my fault she had bought me something I already had. Mine, Fudge said. He closed the book and held it tight against his chest. Mine! It's the thought that counts, my mom said. It was so nice of you to think of our boys. Then she turned to Fudge. Put the book away now, Fudgy. Isn't it Fudgy's bedtime? My dad hinted. Oh, yes, I think it is, my mom said, scooping him up. Say good night, Fudgy. Good night, Fudgy, my brother said, waving at us. Fudge was supposed to fall asleep before we sat down to dinner. But just in case, my mom put a million little toys in his crib to keep him busy. I don't know who my mother thought she was fooling, because we all know that Fudge can climb out of his crib any old time that he wants to. All right, boys and girls, we're going to stop there for today, so stay tuned tomorrow for Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing.